Now, the part of me that started to kind of, I guess, fall out of love with sales was the creative aspect of me because, hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we have a question from Car Shark, and the question is, what was the driving passion that made you quit your job as a salesperson and take the risk to start YouTube? And, well, there was a lot of reasons, and so yeah, let's get straight into the video. Now, I wish that I could give you guys a short and simple answer as to why I left the dealership, but nothing in life is that simple. Once you actually dig into a situation, all of the complexities come out, and then you realize just how crazy life is. Me leaving the dealership is no different. I have literally been dealing with the whole fallout of me leaving for like the last year and a half and digging into it and trying to figure out why I exactly made that choice, because there were certain things that I thought were the reasons, and then as I dig into the situation more and more, I'm like, whoa, those were some reasons, but those weren't all of the reasons. And first off, we have to backtrack to when I was younger, because this will kind of make everything make a little bit more sense. So from a young age, I just constantly questioned my own existence and life, and I know everyone kind of goes through this phase, but I feel like I went through it pretty young. I remember being like 3 or 4 years old and just sitting in the living room and just constantly questioning, like, why do I exist? What is existence? And I just remember, like, what is, like, who am I? And just all those like big life questions. And it was just crazy to have that as a little kid, but it was really awesome because I learned a lot about myself from a really young age. I learned about a lot of my character flaws and a lot of my character strengths from a very young age. I learned that I'm extremely creative. I have a higher level of intelligence as well, and usually those two go hand in hand. Usually creative people are generally more intelligent. And then I'm also extremely industrious, right? I just pick tasks and I just run with it, and I work day in and day out on whatever I do. But I also learned that I'm a pretty disagreeable person. I don't like listening to other people. I don't really like working with other people, and I actually kind of go out of my way to do exactly what people say I shouldn't do, right? Whenever someone says, hey, this isn't how you should do things, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna figure out a way to then make that work, right? That's just what my personality is like. And so in knowing that from a young age, I kind of determined that I'm not really what you would consider good as a team player, because I like to have all of the pressure on me, and I don't like to rely on other people, because I constantly, whenever I was in any sort of team situation, would get disappointed by other people's lack of production in those situations. I worked 2 jobs where they were kind of more like team type jobs, and I also did sports that were team type sports. So like, we'll start with the sports. I did soccer when I was younger, and I was constantly disappointed because I remember I would work really hard and I got my skill level up to a certain amount, and my team players just didn't take it seriously enough, and so we would constantly lose, and I couldn't do it. I got so frustrated and I was like, yep, I can't do this anymore. And then the first 2 jobs I had, the first one was like a housekeeping job where I was cleaning, and I remember when I was a cleaner, I loved it because it was all on me, and all I had to worry about was myself and how hard I worked and all that kind of stuff, and so I did really well. But then I got put into a management type job where I had to rely on other people, and it just didn't work out. I got just so burnt out so quick because I was sick of having to rely on other people, and I ended up just doing their work for them. And yeah, that's obviously not what you want to do in a management type position. And then I worked in a restaurant as well, and similar, right? You basically had to work with the team and everything, and it just, again, it was a similar situation where I was just constantly getting frustrated. And so then this is what pushed me to do sales. Is in growing up, I realized, okay, I am just not a team player type person. Whatever I do, if it's sports, if it's work, whatever it is, it's got to be all on me, or I'm just going to get frustrated and I'm not going to want to do it. And so then from the job perspective, I was like, okay, sales is something where you either are good at it or you're not, and it's all on you. It's nobody else's fault. And so then that's why I ended up going into the sales job in the first place. Is I'm like, okay, I want this job that is just all of the pressure on me, and I'm just gonna run with it. Now, as a salesperson, it pretty much satiated all of my needs, because again, I'm a pretty disagreeable person. I don't like to really work with other people. And as a salesperson, you don't, right? Everything is on you. All of the responsibility, everything is literally on you. So if you do really good, it's your fault in a positive way. If you do really bad, it's your fault in a negative way. And then on top of that, it did satiate my industriousness. I like to work all the time, and as a salesperson, you can work all the time. Nobody's gonna complain about that. And then it actually did satiate the creative and intelligent side of me, because you have to be a creative and intelligent person to be a good salesperson. The thing that I always tell people is your average salesperson might not necessarily be the most intelligent human being, but a really good salesperson is always extremely intelligent. You will not find a successful salesperson that is an idiot. It just doesn't exist. And I bet if you took like all of the top salespeople at dealerships and you gave them an IQ test, they would score way higher than you think. And I'm sure some of them would have genius level IQs. And so, yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. And it doesn't seem like it would be a job that would require a massive amount of intelligence, but you have to be intelligent and creative to be good at sales, right? You have to find new and creative ways to get people to buy from you rather than other salespeople, and to buy from your brand rather than other brands. So not only was I competing with other salespeople that were selling the same brand that I was selling, I was competing with other salespeople that were selling other brands. So I had to find out how to get this person to buy from my Ram dealership instead of the other Ram dealership that I was working at. And then on top of that, I had to convince the people to buy a Ram instead of a Ford or a Chevy or a Toyota or whatever they were comparing the truck to. And so again, it takes massive amounts of creativity. And when I was a salesperson, that's kind of why I did like all the video stuff that I did and the way that I would talk to people. And then when you're actually talking to someone in person, if you're not a very intelligent person, you're typically not going to be the most interesting to talk to, and you have to keep people interested. And the reason you have to do that is if people aren't interested in you and if they don't like you, they're not going to buy a car from you. And so having a higher level of intelligence helps out a massive amount as a salesperson, because then you can kind of bring yourself on different levels to relate to people, right? When I would have people come in that were just obviously not very intelligent, I could just bring myself down to a certain level and just mess around, and they would just completely love me, and then they buy a car from me. And then I'd have people come in that were obviously extremely intelligent people. Like I had one that was a university professor that bought a truck from me. And the reason that he bought a truck from me is he said I was the first salesperson that he could actually hold a conversation with, that could actually understand what he was talking about. And he felt that he related to me on some level. And so, yeah, it just, again, it satiated pretty much all of my needs as a person initially. But that isn't everything, right? There's another aspect of me that it just didn't quite meet. Now, the part of me that started to kind of, I guess, fall out of love with sales was the creative aspect of me, because there's only so much that I could do, right? I had created kind of new processes and everything to get customers to come in, especially on the video side of things, right? That's why I did the videos, sending those to customers, and then also the YouTube channel as well, making those videos, all this stuff that other people just frankly weren't doing and still aren't doing to this day, which completely surprises me. But yeah, initially that kind of worked, but then the creative side of me just ended up getting bored, and this happens all the time. Like, I am just a person that has to try new things all the time, and I do it with everything. Like, what's funny is on a daily basis, I eat somewhat of a similar type of diet, but what I'll do is I just randomly throw different things in and mix different types of foods together to see what tastes good and what doesn't. I wouldn't call myself a chef or anything, but I'm constantly experimenting with food, and that's like, I feel like on the lowest level, and that's what I do with everything in my life, is I'm constantly experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And if something works, then I kind of tune into that industrious side of me and just go and dive into it head first and see how far I can get. And then what typically happens is I get to a certain level, and it gets to the point where any extra amount of creativity might get you like 10% more than where you're at now, but it's not going to be as much progress as what you're getting at the start, right? When you first start into something, it's like the amount of change that you can have happen is just absolutely massive. But once you've been doing it for a while, there's not that much more you can do. And that's kind of what was happening with me in sales. Is initially it was like this thing that fundamentally changed me as a person, and I got to do all these new fun creative things. And then after doing it for 2.5 years, it was like there wasn't really that much more, right? I could do a little bit more and it would get me 10%, right? The creativity would have a 10% effect, but it wouldn't really be that much more. So then I jumped into doing the management type job at the dealership for the last 6 months that I was there. And this was probably the best thing that I've ever done, but also the biggest mistake, because then it threw me back into what I talked about earlier in the video, where I'm just not a very agreeable person. And so going from being a salesperson where I was fully relying on myself to then relying on other people, it just didn't work. I was doing the same thing that I did when I was working as a manager of housekeepers. I was constantly getting frustrated with people. I was constantly doing their work for them because they weren't doing it. And it got to the situation where I just frankly wasn't a good manager type person, right? I did help the dealership improve in a positive sense, but not nearly as much as what I needed to do. And so it kind of led to the situation where it was like the writing on the wall at that point. Now, the creativity is fundamentally the reason why I jumped all into YouTube and left the dealership, right? I was pretty much 90% of the way there with the dealership on the creative side, right? There wasn't that much more room that I could expand. Whereas with YouTube, it was just starting out and it was absolutely blowing up the last year that I worked at the dealership with the YouTube channel, but it just allowed me to be so much more creative. Like, go watch the first video that I posted on YouTube and then go watch one of my recent videos, and the change is absolutely massive, right? I get to make these small incremental creative changes to my videos, and then I get to let this industrious side of me come out and just absolutely destroy it 7 days a week, right? I work all the time, and it just all kind of builds on itself. And I mean, that actually kind of relates to the second channel. The reason why I started the second channel is to kind of slowly build something else creatively, right? Because on my main channel, I'm like 90% of the way there. And so now, if I want to be extremely creative, I've got to start something new. And so it's something that's just going to continue throughout my entire life. And the thing you have to understand is sometimes you can keep doing something else and start something new, but other times you have to just get rid of it, right? You have to let a part of you die. And that's what I had to do with the dealership. I had to make the choice, okay, do I want to continue progressing in life and do these crazy creative endeavors, or do I want to stay at this particular job, right? It just came down to the time and the amount of effort and energy that I had to put into both situations. And so I chose the situation where I could be more creative. And right, there were some things that were a little bit more materialistic associated with it. I was making more money off of YouTube than I was making selling cars. And so from a materialistic standpoint, yeah, it did make a little bit more sense to go more into YouTube if it is making me more money. But it was more about the creative endeavor associated with it. And then also, on top of that, I got to really kind of focus on my character strengths, right? Again, the industriousness, the harder you work with the YouTube stuff, the more money you make. And then on top of that, again, I'm still a disagreeable person, and everything with this YouTube channel either sinks or swims with me. If I fail with this YouTube channel, it's all on me. If I do really good with the YouTube channel, again, it's also all on me. And so it just really plays to my character. And so yeah, it seems like it's a situation that's all over the place, but it really does make sense. So in summation, what this means for me is I'm constantly going to be working on new projects my entire life. This is going to be a lifelong thing. And whenever I tell people that, it kind of scares them because most people seek some form of security and stability. And this is the exact opposite of security and stability. It is, okay, I'm going to build something up to a certain level and then I'm going to quit it and go and try something new where I have absolutely no guarantee of it turning into anything. And I understand why that scares some people, but that's what I love. I love trying new things. I love being creative. I love doing what I can to make it work. And yeah, it's just going to be a lifelong thing. And I guess that I'm not so scared of it because, one, I know I'm never going to retire, and so on the financial side of things, I know that's pretty much always going to be taken care of. And on top of that, right, I'll be honest with you guys, like, the channel's been extremely successful. I did a really good job in sales. Like, the amount of money I've made at my age has definitely set me up for the future. Like, I'm getting to the point where I'm not going to have to work when I'm older if I don't want to. Now, like I said, I'm never going to retire, but in these creative endeavors that are extremely risky, right, you do have a chance of making it. And if you make it, it's crazy the return that you get back financially, which then you can kind of use that stable platform that you've built to then take even more risks. And yeah, it's just super exciting, right? I think that the most important thing in life, at least for me personally, is picking these goals and just trying to get as close as I can to the goal. And that just gives me so much positive emotion. Like, within the last few months, I've kind of felt a little bit down and a little bit negative, and I just kept questioning myself. I'm like, okay, why is this happening? Why am I not feeling that positive? And what I realized is what I said earlier, where I'm at like 90% with the main channel, right? There's not much more else. Like, there's a couple things that I could do, but there's not that much that I can do on the main channel. And so I'm like, okay, I need to start in a new project. I need to do something where I can be more creative and I can kind of see what works and what doesn't work and just go with it and see what happens. And that's what this second channel is. And it's funny that I started the second channel a long time ago and never did anything with it really. And now I'm here where I'm going to be making videos every single day. And so yeah, that's just pretty much what it's like for me. And so I guess that I feel like that should be the biggest takeaway from this video, is just figure out what your character strengths are and what your character flaws are, and build off of that, and then make a hobby out of strengthening your weaknesses. So like for me personally, like I said, I'll take just one example and then we'll kind of cap things off for today's video. I'm a very disagreeable person, and in knowing that I'm a very disagreeable person, what I do is kind of like a quote-unquote hobby is I now try to go out of my way to be more agreeable in situations outside of work, right? With friends and with family and with all that kind of stuff, so that I can try to strengthen my weaknesses. And then when it comes to things that are really important in life, I play off of my strengths. And then what actually ends up happening is, in playing off of my strengths and in strengthening my weaknesses kind of on the side, everything raises. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, this video I feel like is already too long, so I'm just going to kind of cap things off. If you guys want me to continue this conversation in other videos and kind of just give you different insights, then I'm more than happy to do that. But as always, if you're stopping me for the first time, I'd really appreciate if you'd subscribe. And then if you feel like my videos are of value to you, I'll include a link to my Patreon in the description down below where you can support the channel. I'll see all of you guys in the next video.